Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr Speaker.
Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I first of all start my contribution on the debate on this bill, having the first opportunity to extend my condolences to the family and friends of those who died and were injured in the earthquakes early on Monday morning, and to pay homage really to the great Kiwi spirit and the resilience of our communities, which has once again been tested in the current environment. And aren't we standing up? I see communities where people are seeing the best in each other, are helping each other out, and despite the adversity of the times, that we have a great community spirit that I believe is the thing that is going to see people through. And I know that the coming weeks and months are going to be very difficult. I think at the beginning of the process, there's a great deal to be done, there's a great deal to think about, and people have had a new experience in their lives, and then the daily grind begins. And so we've all got that opportunity now to help each other through that period of time. And Mr Speaker, with this bill, the Maritime Transport Bill, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if we were able to have the nimbleness in this Parliament to be addressing the things that we really need to address with our maritime transport system that I think is exposed when we have these natural disasters and these emergencies that we must respond to. Because it would be wonderful if this bill could enhance our maritime transport sector, and in particular our coastal shipping part of our transport system, in order not only to help us through times like this, where it's really apparent that it's desperately needed to have a really robust coastal shipping strategy in place, but also for our day-to-day way of shifting both people and freight around our country. Because, Mr Speaker, if I was to be introducing the Maritime Transport Bill into this House, I think that it would be a great deal more aspirational than what this one is. I will, though, say at the outset that Labor is supporting this bill because it does have some useful measures in it. It certainly has some useful measures in it, but we believe that it misses the opportunity, the big opportunity, staring us right in the face, to enhance and improve our coastal shipping services as part of a fully integrated transport system. And it certainly doesn't bring that about. In fact, I think I could hear it in the Minister's voice when he presented his debate on this bill, given the many complex issues that he is dealing with right now in his role as Minister of Transport, and I want to thank him for all of those efforts that he is making, to then come and present a bill like this to the House about maritime transport must seem deeply ironic, because I know that the Minister will be thinking about the adequacy or the inadequacy of our coastal shipping fleet and its ability to respond in the current emergency situation. And yet, here's this bill that actually does nothing to enhance that. And I suspect, but I'll be interested to hear from the submitters, I suspect may even take us a step backwards. And I'm referring to the issue that the Minister raised in his speech about allowing foreign-flagged vessels to deliver coastal shipping services to islands in and around New Zealand. That, Mr Speaker, I suspect, will actually have the effect of decreasing the robustness of our domestic coastal shipping fleet. And we've seen that already in recent years. We've seen that already where our coastal shipping fleet has diminished in numbers and capacity and capability. And I believe that provision of this bill may well serve to undermine it yet again. Mr Speaker, I raise this issue particularly because when road and rail fail, as they have done with when Mother Nature gets hold of them and shakes them about and gives them a jolly good shake-up and they're no longer usable, as has happened just this week, then the one reliable mode of transport is the transport system available to us by sea. And particularly for an island nation like ours, that is the one area that we can rely on when these natural disasters occur. And we've seen it today. We've seen people being removed in large numbers from Kaikoura by the Defence Force, by sea, by ship. That has ended up being the most reliable mass way to evacuate that area. And I know that the coastal shipping service, which is almost all in private hands, have been incredibly responsible in each of our emergencies that we have been faced with, in pulling together and offering those services to make sure that New Zealand can continue to operate. And so, Mr. Speaker, I am concerned that there is at least one provision in this bill that may make that harder in the future, but I'll be very interested to hear what submitters have to say when they come before the Select Committee on that. Mr. Speaker, the issues of safety in the marine sector are important, and so we will be supporting the drug and alcohol management plans that are proposed through this bill. That's a good thing. I'd encourage the government to look at other sectors where issues are probably more pressing and take an equally strong approach to ensure that workplace health and safety is first and foremost. Because while I'm not aware that drug and alcohol issues are a major problem for our maritime sector, I am aware that the problem that we face with quad bite deaths in this country, for example, is an area where I would like to see the government take a regulatory approach, and I would think that that would have more of a priority than what we're debating here in this bill today. But nonetheless, that's a useful provision. It is a useful provision, but I urge the government to take an equally serious approach to that mounting problem of quad bite deaths that is plaguing our landscape as well. Mr. Speaker, at the first reading, I will of course bring it back to the bill, and and discussing the bill's inadequacies as well. So, Mr. Speaker, the other provisions of the bill, the part of the bill that addresses the shortcomings that were made very obvious when we had the grounding of the RENA some years ago, and the shortcomings in our ability to require compensation from companies and international organisations who we should be able to expect compensation from, are addressed by this bill, and that is not before time. So we will be fully supportive of those provisions, because it is important that we can have certainty that if these disasters, if these oil spillages, if these wreckages happen on our coastline, that we are able to ensure that it is not just the New Zealand taxpayer that cops the full force of the outcome of that. And this bill certainly brings greater clarity and more options forward for the government on behalf of the people of New Zealand to pursue compensation from those who have been complicit in creating the problem in the first place. Mr. Speaker, there are many other bits and pieces of technical changes that are brought forward by this bill. They are issues that, by and large, we will support, but we will listen very carefully to what submitters have to say, people who are experts in the field, people who work in the maritime transport sector, people who will know what the very real consequences are and implications are for all the issues that are traversed through this bill. We will listen very carefully to those. We hope that we will have a good working relationship with all members of the Select Committee, so that if there are unintended consequences that are discovered through that process, that we work together. And I think, you know, our committee does have a history of being able to work together to do exactly that. And I look forward to hearing the submissions, working with all parties to bring forward the best maritime transport amendment bill that we can at this point in time, but also urge the government to be more ambitious for a maritime transport sector that can fully participate in an integrated transport system whether it be in response to an emergency or on any other day of the week.
Alistair Scott.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.